Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's nice to be walking or tobogganing, maybe not driving.
Non-stop snow, cars in ditches, classes canceled again, and another storm is heading our way. Plus,
I hope it's not the case that there was interference. I really do. I think that would be awful.
Vancouver MP Jody Wilson-Raybould quits the Liberal cabinet as the SNC level-in controversy grows, and
focusing on making life better and more affordable for British Columbians.
From ticket scalping to payday loan practices and cell phone billing, the BC government pledges stronger protection for consumers.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. After 3 days of almost non-stop snowfall on the south coast, we're expected finally to get a little bit of a break later tonight.
But after another day of canceled classes and dangerous driving conditions, word even more snow is heading our way this week.
More on that in a minute. First, the impact from the latest storm. The CBC's Leanne Young is live at Broadway in Ashton, Vancouver. And Leanne, it looks pretty nasty out there.
It's not pretty out here, Anita. I'm standing at a busy corner where people are rushing to get home, part of the evening commute, and this snow has been coming down fast and furious for about the last hour. Now, we've been out all day, and these main roads have typically been clear, but as you can see now, it is just covered with this fresh layer of snow. I'm sure we'll be getting accumulation totals later on, and traffic is moving right now, but everyone's being very careful. Actually, just minutes ago, I saw a bus just off to the side of us. It was stuck in the curb, and in fact, two pedestrians came out to actually push it by hand. Now everybody is driving very carefully, because if you don't, there have been a number of accidents as expected with these type of conditions, and some of them can be deadly.
Early this morning, police were called to 228th Street in Maple Ridge. This Sprinter van had collided with an elderly pedestrian. The 85-year-old man died. Mounties say weather and road conditions are being considered as factors in the crash. Across the Lower Mainland, accidents have been piling up. At Mitchell Island, this white SUV hit a dump truck. The truck scraped by a power pole, taking a chunk out of it. And in Port Moody, as a crumpled SUV and van are towed away, another accident holds up already slow traffic. With heavy snow so late in the season, it's turned a slow February into a busy one for Marco Naba and his crew.
So we typically have about 100 calls during what we call the slow months. But yesterday we're in and around 160.
They've been called to accidents, cars stuck in ditches or abandoned up on hills, mostly because of these four-season tires on wintry roads. Those with the smoothest commute today were likely transit riders, where crowds were thin, buses were slow but in working order, and delays were minimal on all SkyTrain lines.
Not too bad, actually. I kind of left for a doctor's appointment like 2 hours early because of the mess that was happening yesterday, and it was fine, so I ended up being an hour and a half early.
It's not as crowded as I thought it was going to be, but yesterday I didn't even try to leave the house because I was in contact with my friends, and like to get to school I have to go to Lougheed, and like they were sending videos of how full Lougheed was.
So full, lineups yesterday went out the station and down the street. That was because only half the Expo and Millennium Line trains were running in the morning.
We got more staff in today. We were able to just get more people out and get more trains out on the system too. So we were delivering a lot more service today than we did yesterday, thankfully. And we just, it's just generally been an easier day in terms of the loads at stations.
Almost all school districts across the Lower Mainland are closed, including Vancouver, Surrey, and Abbotsford. And it's a similar story on the South Island. UBC, SFU, and most post-secondary institutions are also calling it a snow day. But that calm commute could all change tomorrow if everyone heads back to work and school.
It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow, because this snow is not letting up. Expecting to see these wintry conditions through the overnight, but I guess Johanna will have more details on that for you, of course. And TransLink at this point is concerned. They are saying if you are headed out tomorrow, and schools say that they will be back in session, plan for lots of extra time, because the tracks on the SkyTrain especially have been undergoing issues with lots of with lots of issues with icicles falling, so they do have to manually operate some of those trains. So if you are heading out, you want to be careful and plan for lots of extra time. Anita, Mike?
Good advice. Thanks, Leanne Young, live on Broadway tonight.
And on Vancouver Island, snowfall records are being broken with conditions far worse than what we're seeing here in Metro Vancouver. In Victoria, more snow has fallen this month than any other month since February of 1941. Today's snowfall resulting in dozens of canceled flights at Victoria Airport. On the roads, heavy snow throughout the day delayed transit buses by up to an hour and led to cancellations.
Have multiple snow days are pretty unheard of in Victoria, and we take it in stride, but it's certainly something that we're not as equipped for as, say, some of the other larger centres across Canada.
There is some relief on the way for Victoria, with temperatures expected to rise and sun forecast for the weekend.
Of course, if you're in elementary school, there's no sweeter phrase than snow day. South of the Fraser reporter Jesse Johnston joins us live now from Surrey's Royal Kwantlen Park.
And Jesse, classes were canceled across Metro Vancouver today. Some districts haven't done that in more than a decade. What did all the kids get up to, and did you take part?
Well, I'm not going to give all that away, Anita. See, here's the thing. This was kind of hot chocolate drinking, snowman building, tobogganing kind of day. But in the last couple of minutes here at this park, the snow switched over to freezing rain for a little bit. So everyone kind of retreated, got off the hills, and they even went back and gathered around a heater here behind me. But trust me, a little earlier on today, there was an awful lot of sledding going on.
Mommy, what's your favorite thing to do in the snow?
Faith is 10 years old, and because she's a West Coaster, she doesn't have much sledding experience. But now, after spending a full day on the slopes, she's so good at it that she can go down the hill backwards. Faith has also mastered the art of snow architecture. Just listen to her vision for the snow house she wants to build in the backyard.
I tried to make a kitchen with a sink, with dishes. I made a plate.
It's not just students who have the day off today. Tom Robson doesn't have to go into work. But instead of sledding, he's volunteering for Delta's Snow Angels program. He has 5 elderly neighbors and he's shoveling their driveways.
Oh, they're so thankful. You knock on the door, they answer, what can I make you food? Can I give you coffee?
And while Tom is shoveling, the biggest party in Tsawwassen is happening at Diefenbaker Park.
Your helmet.
What class would you be in right now if you weren't here?
French immersion. Yeah, French immersion.
Okay. Is this better than French immersion?
Yeah. Yeah, way better. We love sledding!
They love it so much, they hope they get to do it all over again tomorrow. And so just about every parent I talked to today wants class to be back tomorrow wherever you are in Metro Vancouver. And just about every student I talked to today said they would go for another snow day if they could. So tomorrow morning, all those decision makers from school districts across Metro Vancouver will get together, they'll hunker down, and we'll have all the details on school closures for you on the early edition on CBC Radio 1 tomorrow morning. Anita, Mike?
Thanks, Jesse. Jesse Johnston at Royal Kwantlen Park in Surrey.
All right, let's bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe now. A snow day and a snow night, it seems, out there.
Yes, it is still coming down. You saw both Leanne and Jesse with the snow falling. It is falling behind me just outside the studio. Disclosure, though, I am under a balcony, but those fat flakes are still flying. And yes, a lot of pressure tonight for decision makers. I've had more tweets from high schoolers and elementary school students asking me if there might be a second snow day tomorrow than I've ever had with them before. And the snow is going to end, I've got to tell you. Let me take you to the radar, though, because there are these isolated pockets still happening across the city. You can see out towards Abbotsford and Mission, we've got this pocket of snow. The line that has just come through Metro Vancouver, bringing some steadier rounds to south of the Fraser as well, up towards North Burnaby, and we're still seeing those fluffy flakes fly in downtown Vancouver. These are really isolated bands, though, and this low pressure system sitting off the coast of Vancouver Island is weakening, but that counterclockwise flow still spinning up those isolated bands. And I think there's a chance we may see some more accumulations right up until early hours tomorrow morning. Again, it'll be really isolated if we get anything new. We are still under a snowfall warning. I imagine we'll see that drop through the overnight, but we may end up with 5 more centimeters. Those totals will be very localized. It's hard to track where exactly these isolated bands will show up, but I think that's the top end of the accumulations we'll get through to tomorrow morning. And tomorrow is definitely a clearing forecast. Check this out, taking you through the afternoon, the rest of the evening, I should say, and overnight. Still looking at the chance for some of that snow to develop coming in off the strait. By 7 a.m., some lingering flurries still possible, but generally clearing for the afternoon. Lots of sunshine in the forecast. We just have to get through one more evening, and yes, there is another one for Thursday, but we'll talk about that later.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
A trailer fire in Coquitlam this morning has tragically taken the life of one person.
I ran over here and pounding on the door and trying to open the door, yelling fire, fire. I was dialing 911. They said somebody already called them.
Blaze broke out just before 11 o'clock. Coquitlam RCMP were called to the trailer home on Kayer Street and found one of the units fully engulfed in flames. The deceased person was found inside once the fire had been put out.
The fire was very involved when our first-in crews got here. We could see it from blocks away, heavy black smoke. We had multiple calls on through dispatch, so we know we had a working fire. But the crews made it here in a very timely manner.
A woman from a neighboring home was also taken to hospital. Police say there's nothing to suggest foul play or suspicious activity. The person in the trailer has not yet been identified. The investigation there ongoing.
A bombshell resignation today. Some are calling yet another red flag.
Vancouver MP Jody Wilson-Reybold has quit the Liberal cabinet after allegations the Prime Minister's office pressured her to help SNC-Lavalin avoid criminal prosecution. The CBC's David Cochran has more.
Our government has approved thousands of projects.
A business-as-usual announcement on a not-so-usual day, where the backdrop of a bus can be interpreted in oh so many ways.
I am surprised and disappointed, and to be honest, don't entirely understand why Jody Wilson-Raybold made the decision she did.
Trudeau insists there was no wrongdoing, and if there were concerns, Wilson-Raybold never raised them.
It was her responsibility to come forward to me this past fall and highlight that directly to me. She did not. Nobody did.
Nevertheless, it's come to this. Less than a month after she was demoted, Wilson-Raybold has now departed cabinet entirely. A body blow for a government that prides itself as a champion of women and Indigenous reconciliation. Her resignation letter gives no clear reason for quitting, but offers this statement. When I sought federal elected office, it was with the goal of implementing a positive and progressive vision of change on behalf of all Canadians and a different way of doing politics. Wilson-Raybold thanks many people in her letter. She makes no mention of the Prime Minister.
If it wasn't obvious before, Ms. Wilson-Raybold's resignation makes it crystal clear that Justin Trudeau is trying to hide the truth with regards to the SNC-Lavalin affair.
Scheer is demanding that the Prime Minister's office preserve all documents related to SNC-Lavalin and Jody Wilson-Raybold. The Ethics Commissioner is already investigating. The push now is for the Justice Committee to look into it, something the committee chair, who happens to be a Liberal, says he will support.
I am leaning towards the fact that the committee should investigate it. Canadians across the country are wondering, well, what the heck happened? She just resigned. She wouldn't confirm what he said.
But to get the answers the committee wants, the Prime Minister would have to waive solicitor-client privilege to let Wilson-Raybold talk. It's something he's seeking advice on, but says isn't simple to do.
There's a real danger that's been flagged for me of unintended consequences, particularly because there are 2 court cases ongoing directly related to this matter that could be impacted by such a decision we might make.
While Trudeau gets advice, so does Wilson-Raybold. For now, she remains silent, but she's hired retired Supreme Court Justice Thomas Cromwell to advise her on what she can say publicly in the future. So stay tuned. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, new rules for concert ticket sales, better oversight of payday loan practices, and more transparency in billing for cell phones.
Just some of the promises being made today by the NDP government. The CBC's provincial affairs reporter Tanya Fletcher is live in Victoria tonight. And Tanya, the throne speech covered a lot of ground, but stronger protection for consumers was one of the highlights.
Yeah, that's right, Anita. And this throne speech heralded affordability as the overarching priority for the NDP. And those consumer protection measures are a key part of that. Here they are. So first of all, the province is promising a ban on mass ticket buying software used by scalpers for live events. It's also vowing to conduct a legislative review of billing practices for cell phone providers. And as part of its crackdown on payday loan practices, new legislation will cap fees for cashing government checks. Now, aside from that, a lot of what's in here isn't exactly new. They're clearly building on things that have already been announced, and that is pretty predictable or typical for a government that's midway through its term. Let's go back to more of the points they hammered home today on their affordability agenda. So for housing, the province says it will add to the rental supply and fast-track project approvals. For low-income British Columbians, it is promising a first-ever poverty reduction strategy. And for parents, they're promising new legislation to bring in universal childcare province-wide. Now, the Premier was later pressed about the full implementation of that $10 a day daycare, and here's how Premier John Horgan responded.
We've made great progress, but we've got much more to do. Legislation will encode that.
So it's not $10 a day childcare for everyone this year?
We have a $10 a day pilot that we announced last fall, and we're going to take a look at the success of that, and we're going to be moving forward as quickly as we can to reduce costs for British Columbians.
And Tanya, perhaps not surprisingly, the other two party leaders had some criticism of the throne speech. What are they saying?
Yeah, the main opposition, or the criticism from the opposition, circles back to that promise to improve billing transparency with cell phone providers. Here's Liberal leader Andrew Wilkinson.
I think we all know that there are three major cell phone providers in this country. They're all federally regulated. Everyone knows that, just like television and radio is federally regulated. And this Premier has decided he's going to go in on his white horse and tell the feds how to do their job. The cell phone companies will drag that through the courts for a decade.
As for Green Party leader Andrew Weaver, he called today's throne speech a laundry list of populist items. But here's his reaction specifically to the environmental points.
We're pleased that the government is continuing down with its path towards clean BC, although ironically, immediately following that, and the irony wasn't lost on me, they start talking about LNG. Of course, we've made it very clear to government that we have no intentions of supporting any legislation this session that would enable the generational sellout embodied in their plans for LNG.
Now, this throne speech also gave a nod to the legislature spending scandal. It ended with this, saying the foundation of public trust was recently shaken. This government will implement reforms to restore trust in this core institution. And just moments after that, a motion was passed in the House specifically on that front, making it official. Liberal MLA Linda Reid is out as the Assistant Deputy Speaker, and she'll be replaced in that role by her colleague, Liberal MLA Joan Isaacs. So aside from all of this today in the throne speech, we'll have to wait for details to be specified in the provincial budget that's set to be delivered next week. Anita, Mike?
Tanya Fletcher live in the capital tonight. Thanks.
4 charges have been laid in last month's shooting of a transit police officer at the Scott Road SkyTrain station in Surrey. Dayon Glasgow's charges include attempted murder and discharging a banned firearm. He was arrested after a 4-day manhunt involving at least 80 officers. The Surrey RCMP is asking anyone with information who has yet to speak with them to contact them at the number listed on your screen. You can also contact them anonymously at solvecrime.ca.
Vancouver police are searching for a 4-time federal offender who is wanted after not returning to his halfway house. Joseph Davis is currently serving a 4-year sentence for sex assault, and there's a Canada-wide warrant out for his arrest. He's white, 5'8", 178 pounds. He has short blonde hair, blue eyes, several tattoos on his arms. Davis was last seen wearing a black rain jacket, blue jeans, work boots, and carrying a small backpack. If you see him or have information about his whereabouts, you are asked to call 911 immediately.
And if you want to share or rewatch any of our stories, remember to follow us online, subscribe to us on YouTube, or like our Facebook page by searching CBC Vancouver.
You can also get the latest information by following us on Twitter @CBC News BC. And we encourage you to join the discussion on the day's stories by watching this newscast online, streaming live, and on demand every day. Now, she was caught on camera doing this. Coming up, how investigators identified Toronto's high-rise chair thrower.
Good evening to you watching online. This week, a joint CBC News and Sports investigation is revealing the scope of sexual abuse in amateur sports across the country. Yesterday, we laid out the numbers.
Now, in part 2 of the series, the story shifts from wake-up call to what do we do next. The federal sports minister says she's doing all she can, but as Devin Haro tells us, one former athlete who needed protection says that's just not good enough.
Well, what's at stake here is lives.
20 years ago, Allison Forsyth broke her silence, but the former Olympian was warned speaking out against her alpine ski coach, later in prison for sexual-related offenses, could cut her career short.
When I tried to report the abuse that was happening for me, ultimately, I was encouraged to not say anything.
CBC's investigation into sexual offenses in amateur sports shows it's a reality young athletes in this country still face today. Now, leading sports organizations in the country are weighing in, with the Canadian Olympic Committee and Canadian Paralympic Committee saying they will be strong and influential voices on this critical issue. And Athletes Canada calling for a unified strategy to address abuse in sport.
And I noticed that.
Minister Kirsty Duncan admits the system is broken and says she has no illusions about the challenges in fixing it.
It's going to take our athletes, our coaches, our parents, our families, our officials, our national sport organizations, and governments.
With thousands of young athletes competing at the Canada Games later this week, the minister has set meetings with her provincial and territorial counterparts. Her hope is that they come up with a plan to protect young athletes.
We're looking at a code of conduct. We're looking at creating a third-party organization, and there's going to be more to say over the coming weeks.
Forsyth wants to believe the minister is sincere and that things will change. But she no longer has patience for the waiting game.
I sit on these calls now and I white knuckle and I breathe and I try to maintain my empathy and my response versus my reaction.
If today's reaction is any indication, sports' dirty secrets, as the minister calls them, aren't secrets anymore. Devin Haro, CBC News, Toronto.
And for more on that series, including a short documentary on the push to protect Canadian gymnasts from sexual assault, visit youtube.com/CBC The National.
And we'll be back with another update on the weather in just a few minutes. Well, police have identified the woman who tossed a chair off a condo balcony in Toronto.
Video posted to social media shows the chair falling from dozens of floors above.
As Chris Glover reports, investigators say public anger helped them find the suspect.
After throwing chairs that threw the city into a tailspin.
Prison. She could have killed somebody.
Police now say they know who the woman is who hurled 2 chairs off a high-rise condo near the Gardiner Expressway.
We don't go into the strategies that we used to track her down. I will tell you this. We received a lot of tips.
A similar chair toss off a Toronto balcony was reported in December, but didn't pick up nearly the same public outcry. The online witch hunt for this culprit led a lot of people to one now deleted social media account.
Can you guys confirm that? I won't be confirming who the person is until she speaks to investigators.
Police won't say how long they'll give her.
We want to be flexible. There's nothing emergent in this.
Somebody threw something out of the stands.
In 2016, a man tossed a beer can during a Jays game. It happened on a Tuesday, and police gave the suspect until Thursday night to turn himself in. As for this incident, police are also investigating if she was an Airbnb guest. Was it Airbnb that contacted police or police that contacted Airbnb?
We contacted police.
After what?
Based on what you just conveyed, right? There's a lot of conversation. We want to be helpful. If there's a chance this may have happened through an Airbnb listing, but we don't have anything to confirm.
We showed the video to the condo board at 111 Bathurst, another downtown condo.
Well, that's crazy.
The board says their building has experienced issues from short-term rentals. Last year, this fire destroyed a suite on the 8th floor at 111 Bathurst. It was sparked by a carelessly tossed lit cigarette, but police never found the culprit. The board doesn't know if it was a short-term renter, but they're suspicious.
There's really no control over these guests, and because they're hosted by people that we don't really have any kind of record or knowledge of.
Police tell us they're also aware of a second video that shows a different perspective and shows multiple people on the balcony. Now, when we asked if other people could be charged in relation to all of this, police would only say that at this point, they're only focused on the woman who threw the chairs. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
We are learning tonight workers raised concerns about a wood pellet plant in Edmonton before an explosion happened.
3 people were injured in the blast yesterday. The CBC's Andrea Ross reports.
The explosion at Pinnacle Renewable Energy near Entwistle was powerful enough to shake houses nearby. Among the injured was a 28-year-old man who was airlifted to hospital in critical condition. Angela Ryder was at home near the plant when the explosion happened.
We heard it and felt it, like the house shook. I thought a moose ran into the side of our house, or a tree had fallen on it.
Pinnacle says work at the plant has been suspended, and the cause of the explosion is not known. Occupational Health and Safety says a fire broke out at the plant in January, but no one was injured. Worker complaints resulted in 2 inspections in December and January. Because of those, an order regarding equipment safety was issued on the worksite. This isn't the first major incident at a Pinnacle plant. In 2014, an explosion in BC injured 3 people. A report from WorkSafe BC found company procedures weren't followed. Pinnacle was fined $56,000. Andrea Ross, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, it is all anybody is talking about. Everybody is talking about the weather, and that's why we're bringing Johanna Wagstaffe back here now. And how are we looking?
Well, yeah, fair enough that it's all everyone's talking about. These are some pretty impressive snowfall totals we're seeing across the south coast that began on Sunday, and I'm still watching the edge of a band bring last round, well, I shouldn't say last round, bring around this evening of light snow to Metro Vancouver. If it looks a little snow globy out there, that is the edge of a little band that this low pressure system has spun up. And I do think there's a chance we may see a few more of these through the overnight and into tomorrow morning, evening. So we're not quite done with the impacts of this low pressure system. Quick look at the temperatures out there playing a role in what we're seeing. -1 up towards West Van, -1 at the airport, 2 down towards Victoria. So that cold air is still very much in place. We've lost that outflow though, but that low pressure system is still spinning in the moisture to very cold air. And I just want to take you through the overnight because of our high resolution models are still indicating, here's 7 a.m., the chance of some isolated light snow that early in the morning. And I know tomorrow morning's commute is top of mind with the chance that kids will be going back to school. So there is the chance that we may see some light snow to start, but clearing it towards the afternoon. There is high confidence in that. We will see some sun. I'll get you through Thursday night system, which is a very different story, coming up later in the show.
All right, Joe, thank you.
You're welcome.
This weather update is brought to you by your local RE/MAX agent. The experience, the tools, the know-how. That's the sign of a RE/MAX agent.
And we're continuing to track the icy conditions around Metro Vancouver right now. Coming up after the break, we take you back to the streets for another live look at the mess on our roads.
And returning now to our top story, even as the South Coast works to dig itself out of 3 days of snow, more snow is falling tonight.
For the latest on the conditions this evening and what commuters, if you're driving, what you need to know, Leanne Young is live for us at Broadway and Ash Street in Vancouver. Leanne, what are you seeing out there right now?
Well, Anita, we are still seeing this snow come down, and traffic is just starting to thin out now as most people are probably headed home through the evening commute, but we are still seeing some traffic delays. So in West Vancouver police have now closed the 22nd Street on-ramp to get onto Highway 1, and there are lots of delays with buses. In fact, in some downtown buses, there are waits now up to 45 minutes because of poor road conditions. So not exactly an easy commute home at this point because this snow is not letting up quite yet.
And Leanne, what should commuters, drivers expect tomorrow morning?
Well, that is indeed the big question. This snow is going to continue falling through the overnight hours. And the fortunate thing with today is that there's a bit of a break. So crews had a chance to actually clear off some of these main roads. So they've remained mostly clear. This fresh layer of snow has had mostly a minimal impact for cars. I mean, buses, as I've mentioned, have had some delays. And schools, of course, have been closed. Almost all schools across the Lower Mainland have been closed today. Post-secondary institutions have mostly been the same. So tomorrow morning, if all of that goes back into action, then you could really see that commute get slowed down quite a bit. Something TransLink is keeping a close eye on because they've had a number of issues between buses and with SkyTrains. And here's what they're watching for at this point.
Going to keep watching the weather, monitoring. We're keeping close tabs on things and we'll adjust service as necessary. Meantime, it's just cold, right? It's been cold for a long time. We need to keep salting and sanding our exchanges. Ice is a real issue everywhere. It's, for safety reasons, but also just running the system.
We haven't heard of too many delays on the Expo Millennium line today, probably because traffic has been so light and they've been able to bring in extra staffing. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow. Schools will know by about 5:30 to 6:30 in the morning whether they will be back in session or not. But the best advice really is to give yourself plenty of time no matter where you're headed. Anita, Mike?
All right, Leanne Young reporting live tonight, Broadway and Ash in snowy Vancouver. Thanks.
Veterans Affairs Minister and former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould has resigned from Justin Trudeau's cabinet.
There are reports the Prime Minister's office asked her to intervene in a major court case, something she has neither confirmed nor denied.
Katie Simpson looks at how Wilson-Raybould's resignation could hurt the Liberals.
For an image-obsessed government, this picture is everything the Liberals want to stand for. But in the 3 years since, Jody Wilson-Raybould has gone from PMO poster child to its biggest worry.
Well, I use the word time bomb because this is such an unprecedented situation. The pin was released today, and we don't know what will happen.
Amid the uncertainty, there's one constant. Wilson-Raybould does not appear to be afraid to publicly criticize her political masters.
For my part, and to be very candid, I've been challenged, but I also challenge constantly.
In a series of speeches delivered in the fall, she questioned the government's handling of Indigenous issues.
Good morning.
And when she was demoted to Veterans Affairs in January, she published a 2,000-word statement, seemingly foreshadowing the current controversy. The Attorney General of Canada must be nonpartisan, more transparent, and, in this respect, always willing to speak truth to power.
This is Ontario Today.
Backlash against the Prime Minister has already begun.
I probably will never vote Liberal again.
Some callers to CBC Radio's Ontario Today are disappointed with what's transpired, including Alex Jameson, a member of the Six Nations community.
It crossed my mind that maybe she was used to promote an image of reconciliation, and then when she wasn't serving a purpose anymore, was then discarded.
Some Indigenous leaders are also concerned, especially after Wilson-Raybould was called difficult and self-centered by unnamed Liberal sources in the media.
And I think that First Nation people across Canada will remember this, and I believe that women voters across Canada will also remember how Jody Wilson-Raybould has been treated by this government.
The Liberals need the help of Indigenous and women voters to win another majority government. If this controversy drags on or gets worse, Justin Trudeau could lose credibility with both groups. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
6:37 on this snowy Tuesday evening. Here's a live look at downtown Vancouver tonight from our tower cam, and the snow is sticking there. It is expected to ease off later on tonight, but Johanna says another storm is heading our way. Her forecast is next.
Well, all this snow is not stopping people from enjoying getting outdoors and enjoying the weather. So we thought we'd take a look at what's happening, starting out at the Vancouver Aquarium.
Yeah. Snow day at the aquarium. Snow day for the otters.
The rescued otters.
Yeah.
They are so cute. 6
You know all
of
their
them.
names?
Tanu, Katmai, Mach, Kunik, Rialto, and Hardy.
I like how you pretended you just listed those off.
I've got some notes.
Yeah. I think that these otters, though, share the sentiment of land otters, aka dogs, because that's basically what mine looked like this morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Land otters.
So very cute.
But it's good for them. They get out there and they interact with their trainers and eat the snow like that, right? Yes.
And some more action over in Kits. Why walk when you can ski?
Oh, wow.
That's actually a good place to do that, right?
Makes sense today.
Because that's right along the seawalk. There.
Yeah. One of our colleagues in Victoria apparently skied into the station out there.
Oh, yeah, there's some snowshoers out as well. I mean, do what you got to do on a day like today.
This video was sent in to us by a friend of one of our editors. Photo sent to us by a former cameraman, Chris Terwara.
Oh, on the island. Cozy night inside an igloo.
That's lovely. I wonder if they can keep it going through to Valentine's Day.
A little Chablis.
You tell us, is it going to be
Oh, yeah,
cold
right.
enough?
You could, actually. Yes, it will stick around. See, these are everyone making the best of it. I like seeing the silver lining to the snow, the white lining.
It's nice. And feel free to send us your photos or videos if you're doing anything out of the ordinary.
That is really cool. It's Langford's Paul Lewis, responsible for the igloo there.
Yeah, that's really neat. I've got something kind of neat to show you as well.
Do you?
This is, all of these pictures might have you thinking, and all of us trying to commute around in it, maybe it's a good time to head to Hawaii. Winter is one step ahead of us, though. Take a look at these pictures from Maui. What? I know. This was on the weekend. A dramatic low pressure system. Now, fair enough, this is still about 1,800 meters, but this is now the lowest altitude snow that the state has ever seen. It's on the southeastern section of the island, for those of you who have been to Maui. Pretty incredible stuff.
Well, knowing it's Maui, you think that's just ash, or not that there's a volcano. But
exactly. So rare to see. So that is what Hawaii is talking about nonstop. So if you had plans to go down there, this low pressure system is moving out. Still not a bad idea.
Should be fine.
Yeah, should be fine.
You see snow on the top of Haleakala at times, but just not down that low.
It's how low it got that was surprising everyone. So now that we've softened the forecast up for you, let's take a look at the time lapse from this morning, where yes, it was coming down pretty much at the same rate we're seeing across parts of Metro Vancouver this evening. Still getting those isolated bands, which I think now we should make a t-shirt name. I've said it enough times tonight. Isolated bands will continue through the overnight and into tomorrow morning. Another place that is getting heavy snow tonight, I just wanted to show you the satellite and radar for the eastern half of the country, because yes, they've been getting a lot of snow. They're used to this kind of snow, but this is going to be the most significant snow event yet this winter for Ottawa, Montreal, and Atlantic Canada. The bulk of it hitting Ottawa and Montreal, up to 40 centimeters by this time tomorrow. And Toronto, most schools had a snow day today. Ottawa and Montreal already declaring snow days for tomorrow. You can see the winter storm warnings in place all the way out to Atlantic Canada. So I've had a few tweets from across the country with people saying, well, why don't we just go ahead and call it a national snow day tomorrow? We're all sharing in the solidarity, and it's cold air in place for Alberta right through Saskatchewan and into Manitoba. I shouldn't leave out southeastern BC, because we are into the winter storm warning for the Kootenays, upwards of 30 centimeters for Highway 3 as we head out towards West Kootenay. Still seeing snow down to the valley for the Okanagan and South Thompson tonight. You've already picked up 10 centimeters in places like Kelowna. You could double that by tomorrow afternoon. And then we still have our snowfall warnings out here on the southwest coast. Again, those isolated bands may bring another 2 to 5 centimeters. Here's the forecast snowfall totals, again, right through to tomorrow morning, when I think the snow will finally ease. And you can see we're really just looking at trace to 5 centimeters, but that's on top of everything we've already got. Okay, I've got to get you through the long range. A few things to talk about here. Hoping for that sun by the afternoon, and the sun may start to melt things, even though temperatures are still fairly cool. Thursday night into Friday. This system is going to bring a warm up, as you can see through our Friday, Saturday, Sunday temperatures, but I do think there'll be some snow mixed in there. So probably a high impact event for Thursday night and Friday morning commute. I'll watch that one closely, but I'll let everyone enjoy a sunny afternoon tomorrow first.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think we deserve it.
Thanks, Joe.
We do.
This weather update is brought to you by RE/MAX. What's your home worth? Find out with our instant valuation tool at remax.ca.
One of the most high-profile drug trials comes to a close. The verdict for Mexican drug kingpin El Chapo, coming up.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Join CBC Vancouver's Anita Bathe as she hosts the 20th anniversary of the Influential Women in Business Awards on March 8th. And celebrate International Women's Day with Gloria Makarenko at West Coast Leafs Equality Breakfast. Get your tickets today. And for more on these events, you can check us out online, cbc.ca/BC.
Well, as Johanna has mentioned, we are certainly not the only place in Canada grappling with a blast of winter weather.
Yeah, a nasty storm is hammering Toronto, bringing with it freezing temperatures and a big dump of snow.
But as Farmer Rally reports, residents are coping as best as they can.
These 7 letters were the only colorful sight in Toronto today. Early this morning, thick white flakes blowing sideways blanketed the city, making simple tasks like just walking a challenge.
Yeah, it's a bit cold and windy. The snow hurts a bit when you're walking through it.
It's brutal. It's cold, it's icy, it's windy.
The weather's really bad.
Still, some were more adventurous than others.
I could have walked in the path, but I figured I'm dressed for it. It's some fresh air, so why not?
The 1-2 punch of snow then ice prompted the Toronto District School Board to close schools for the first time in 8 years. Many others chose to stay home too. Some main roads were relatively quiet, and maneuvering the slippery conditions was just half the battle.
How has it been for visibility so far on the roads?
It's horrible. It's windy, you cannot see. We are putting in windshield washer, we need it because of snow.
At 7:45 this morning, the city says salting began. Then, after snow began accumulating, the plows hit the streets.
Let's talk some of the numbers. How many plows and salting trucks are out there today?
So it's our full complement. We have 1,100 pieces of equipment, so there are 200 salters, 600 road plows, and 300 sidewalk plows.
The TTC says the morning commute went as normal as it could. It has 60 buses on standby to replace any streetcars that might have issues this evening. Some basic winter tools, like salt, suddenly became a hot commodity today. Many Canadian Tire locations, including this one at Lakeshore and Leslie, were completely sold out of salt.
Just have to wait until they get it back in stock.
So what do we got in here?
Yeah, here the salt. What left?
Back downtown at St. Lawrence Pro Hardware, bags upon bags of salt. But they're going fast. So are these.
Do you think some people leave it to the last minute?
I think so, yeah.
The CBC's Farmer Rally in Toronto.
Just like here. Yeah, exactly. Well, Mexican drug kingpin El Chapo is now facing life behind bars.
His 3-month trial has ended in convictions on multiple charges. The CBC's Ellen Morrow has more.
This was the raid that finally brought El Chapo to justice. And now the kingpin, real name Joaquin Guzman, will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars.
The jury found that Guzman led the Sinaloa cartel, one of the largest and most dangerous drug cartels in the world.
Guzman is Mexico's most infamous drug lord. His cartel, according to prosecutors, the biggest supplier of drugs to the U.S. In nearly 3 months of extraordinary testimony, often sounding more like a soap opera than real life, the jury heard how Guzman's operatives smuggled more than 200,000 kilograms of drugs through tunnels, on boats, in submarines, even in fake bananas. Witnesses also described gruesome murders carried out on Guzman's orders and alleged that Guzman drugged and raped girls as young as 13, calling them his vitamins.
Today's verdict is justice. It's justice for the many thousands upon thousands of victims of overdose. It's justice for their families. It's justice for their friends, for their communities, for their towns, and for their cities.
Guzman is also accused of offering a $130 million bribe to Mexico's former president, Enrique Peña Nieto. Peña Nieto's former chief of staff denied the claim. Guzman has evaded prosecution for decades, escaping jail twice, once riding a motorcycle through this tunnel to freedom. His luck seems to have run out. But while law enforcement celebrates winning this battle, the Mexican drug war that has killed more than 100,000 people over the last decade rages on. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
Anti-government protesters took to the streets of Venezuela again today, demanding the ouster of President Nicolas Maduro.
The biggest demonstration was in the capital, and the CBC's Adrian Arsenault was there.
Okay, so what's happening here is just around the corner. That's the voice of Juan Guaido, who's on the stage talking to the people here. There were 5 opposition marches, 5 departure points. They all congregated right at this square here. People have been sort of standing in the burning sun, listening to him. One of the first things he said when he got up to the stage was to thank the countries that have supported him. He mentioned Canada and Australia first. Interestingly, he did not mention the United States at all. He talked, unless I'm mistaken, he talked about the humanitarian aid that he's been trying to get in. He says he managed to get vitamins into the country. No one's quite clear how that happened. He says he's opening up a new cargo point for humanitarian aid somewhere in Brazil. Somewhere there is an island in the Caribbean that's waiting. But still, the fact is, this big, group of humanitarian aid has not yet come into this country. So what makes all this so very interesting is that, yes, there's enthusiasm, there's energy, there's solidarity, there may even be momentum, but it's not at all clear whether any of this will be enough to oust a leader who just does not want to go. And that's certainly something that Juan Guaido knows very well. Adrian Arsenault, CBC News, Caracas.
Well, a woman in Halifax has 108 reasons to celebrate. She's marking a special birthday that makes her one of the oldest people in all of Canada. We take you to her party next.
Okay, there are milestone birthdays, and then there's what Nova Scotia's Ava Robichaud was celebrating today.
Yes, forget 80, 90, or 100. Robichaud, who was born on February 12th, 1911, is now 108 years old.
Wow. Well, the celebration was held today just outside of Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. The CBC's Colleen Jones was there.
Eva Robichaud had both birthday lobster and cake today at her favorite seafood place in Chebogue. At 108, this centenarian still going strong.
I need to know the secret to living to 108.
Oh, I don't tell everybody.
Her granddaughter, Sue Conrad, thinks she knows why her grandmothers lived so long.
She's funny. When I asked her that yesterday, she said, eat oatmeal every day for breakfast, and is there going to be beer at my birthday party?
You look at this picture of your mom.
Isn't she incredible?
Yeah. Going through a century plus of old photos, her daughter, Catherine.
How old are you now?
I'm 82.
So when you look at your mom at 108,
I'm scared. I do.
What's the best advice your mom ever gave you growing up? What do you remember the most? What were some of her mom-isms?
Went to church, practiced a good life, no excess of any sort, took care of their family. That was her secret of life.
In addition to Catherine, Eva had Richard and George. Her kids, well, they're all in their 80s.
What do you think the secret to your mom's longevity is?
Well, I'm more realistic. I think it's in the genes of the family.
Do you have a favorite memory?
Well, I think the most favorite one I had is when I had my first baby.
The first baby. Was that Richard? Richard, your little baby.
She is a huge inspiration to me, and I just feel, you know, I'm in my 50s as well. I went back to school, and because of her being so successful, I always felt that I could do whatever I wanted and that you're never too old.
According to the record books, Eva is the second oldest person in Nova Scotia and the 22nd oldest in Canada. Happy birthday, Eva. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Chebogue.
Happy birthday, Eva.
Good genes in the family. She does not look 108.
No, I know.
Nor does her daughter look 82.
82.
I wish she shared her secrets. Oatmeal
Well, she
every
said
morning.
oatmeal and beer, right?
You're writing this down, right?
Oatmeal and beer, yeah. Yeah, I asked an elderly friend of mine a while ago, how's life? And he said, it's taking forever. 108, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What do we got? Snow otters again?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Can't get enough of those guys.
Oh, yeah. They're great.
You can just watch this video on loop.
I know. Let us all have a bit of snow otter in us tomorrow morning.
Done. I like that.
Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
And we want to see the pictures of you rolling around in
Oh,
the
yeah.
snow.
Done.